cats, cops, and C4. Vera stretches out the kinks in her back and exposes her insane flexibility right in front of him. Man, getting the axiom whacked out of you leaves so many kinks in the... She's interrupted by Melan running a finger down her back, and there's a series of popping sounds as whatever Vera was about to complain about is clearly solved. The feline descendant alien starts outright purring as she falls to the floor at Melan's feet, even more flexible when totally relaxed than she is when tensed up. "You okay down there?" Cenk asks as right behind him Amy is staring at this with wide eyes. Is this normal?" Amy asks in shock. "No," Linda says. "No, it is not. Takra very much live their own way, and empty-hand masters do so as well." "Well, pardon me for finding my own path," Melan says simply as she picks up Vera by the shoulders and sets her on her feet. That warrior. She moved very swiftly and was exceptionally skilled with her blades. I also sensed the pattern of axiom tattoos beneath her outfit. I suspect she is not one of a kind, but one of many. "You had a note of disdain when you said axiom tattoo," Cenk states. "They are shortcuts. I understand the need, but I also cannot see them for anything but what they are. A means to skip the discipline and training required. Your own brand is somewhat different. There is an aspect of enormous discipline to the sheer pain it brings to have such a marking. That at least teaches the branded to tolerate immense pain." "True enough. I've reached the point where torture is rather pointless," Chunk muses. His pain threshold has grown to the point that you'd need to kill him twice over to get him to even start to crack. The whole station was buzzing now that the last few effects of the knoll were cleared away. The entire gang that Warlottie Klubba had brought were in cells and awaiting interrogation. But more important, the civilians were recovering and their statements were being taken. Everyone had been called in and the station was crowded to a point of near madness. Cenk's job, however, was to greet a certain vehicle that was on approach, one that was now in visual range. A massive converted Airbus slowly descends from the sky. It's reinforced, armored, and while there are no weapons on it, its overhauled engines and massively tough frame means that if something starts, it's a flying battering ram. It lands in front of the station, and first out are two rather infamous figures around the Undaunted. Bedecked eternally in Spec Ops gear, and with only the symbols for Alpha and Omega to identify them, they were the two of a very small handful of people Cenk was absolutely sure he couldn't take. Although he could still fight, it just wouldn't break his way. But if he put in the effort, he might break something of theirs. Then between them comes a small force of private streams all clustered around a central one, holding a very familiar box. Cenk is willing to put good and hard money that this is a last bit of dangled bait, just daring someone to be dumb enough to bite. More soldiers in Spec Ops gear come out, and then out march prisoners. Cloak and all, and with prisoner collars around their necks. Several of them are being floated out in hover chairs due to clearly broken legs, and several are nursing broken limbs. Finally, the last one comes out with a pair of handlers and then a rear guard of more soldiers. Chief Bowman emerges from the station and looks down upon them with awe, even as the final member of this undaunted procession, Lore from the Nerd Squad, emerges. The whole thing moves up, and Agents Alpha and Omega snap off salutes. Prisoner transfers, the entire Unseen Eyes organization, or at least the one on the middle 20 levels of Malaraspire at any rate. Unseen Eyes is a popular organization name. The spokesman Private Stream states, and the others nod. Also the thing they tried to steal before we made the switch out. I'm sorry I had to do that. Can you forgive me? Stop buttering them up. You don't need to play it cute with the warbling voice, Chunk admonishes the shorter soldier. He then raises his leg and intercepts a swing at his stomach with his knee. I didn't even see him move, Amy exclaims. We're fast, Chunk says. Not really. It was a playful swing, Mozilla notes. Anyways, Miss Bossy Lady Ma'am, where do you want the bad girls? They're all in special anti-axiom collars, so we just need a place to put them. They're not teleporting, going invisible, or ripping off bars or anything else, Private Stream says. We also got the box. I don't know what's inside it, but the bad ladies really, really wanted it, the Private Stream with the evidence exclaims, holding it up before looking around. Aw, I thought more bad ladies would show up, Sorry, we seem to have had our fill of massive brawls for the day, Chief Bowman says with a deeply amused smile. This way, please. Once we get the prisoners squared away, we can speak about the evidence. They then march the criminals into the station, all in grabbing range of the very thing they were all captured to protect, but none of them in any condition to make the lunge. Thankfully, the station has protocols for situations like this, and the like-minded organizations are all packed in tight together. They're going off to a larger holding facility in a few hours anyway, so they can just take it. Then they head into Chief Bowman's office, and the box is placed on her desk by the private stream carrying it. I must admit, this is an odd situation, but judging on the sheer reaction around whatever's in there, and your own caution, this must be good. It is, ma'am, now may I? Laura asks, and Chief Bowman holds up a paw and then points to his chest. The man looks down and then lets out a groan of disgust. There's a medal hanging there that he did not put on himself. 11 dieth pie, best at think he thinks. Really? He demands before throwing the gag medal at Agent Alpha. It bounces off his face mask right between his eyes, but the man doesn't move. There is a waiver in the axiom, and the medal lands flawlessly back onto Lore's lab coat. The man's eyes scrunch together in sheer annoyance before he simply pockets the gift. Apologies. Someone thinks he's funny, sneaking mocking accreditation onto others. Message from Agent Alpha, sir, one of the private streams says, holding up an envelope. He's right here. If he wants to say something, he can open his damn mouth. Laura protests, and there's an aura of sheer amusement from Agent Alpha. All right, that's enough, Chief Bowman begins to say as she leans back in her chair and bumps up against something. She reaches behind herself and pulls out a handcrafted knife sheathed in leather, with her name stenciled in the side. There's a sticky note on it with the words compliments of and the Omega symbol. All right, if we have all that out of our systems, can we continue, please? She asks, placing the knife to the side. For what prize and piece of evidence was my station flagrantly attacked by no less than 4 groups in a public and brazen display of violence? Ma'am, I'm Specialist Gerald Lore. I am one of the foremost undaunted experts on axiom imbuing and proper Kutha use. I'm one of the primary minds behind the Undaunted brand, which you've no doubt seen Specialist Barnabas sporting to great effect. Yes, immunity to plasma, heat, laser, and electrical attacks is a very useful tool. Does that have something to do with what's in the box? I was more listing my accreditation so you understand that what I'm going to tell you is not blasé opinion, but informed fact. Lore says before opening the evidence container and tilting out the insides for her to see the veil. This is a Class 2 direct cognitohazard. A cognitohazard is a device, technique, animal, or other phenomenon that affects the mind. Direct means that it requires physical contact with its victim to be effective. The 2 means that its effects are obvious and clear. I see. That's a dangerous classification system. But what is this? She demands, gesturing towards the box. This tentatively named the slave veil is shockingly similar to another device we have encountered called the persona nail. Both devices, when implanted into a victim, suppress the personality and free will of the person in question and forces them to act in specific manners. The persona nail is a Class 3 direct object, a Class 1 being subtle, a Class 2 being obvious, and a Class 3 having obvious and subtle effects. Concerning, but my question is unanswered. What is the slave veil? The slave veil turns an average citizen into an assassin. Place this on a victim and they lose all sight of who they actually are, develop a great deal of stealth and weapon skill, and become slavishly obedient to the master of the veil. Gerald Lore states, and Teresa Bowman's eyes narrow. I see. And what's the undaunted policy for dealing with situations like this? All known instances of any cognitohazard are to be captured for study and eventual destruction. Their sources suffer the same fate. Once the hazard is understood, it goes to straight-up systematic destruction of all known and discovered hazards. We do not tolerate the existence of these kinds of threats outside of laboratory conditions to find better ways to resist and destroy them. These are an affront to the morality of and the stated goals of the Undaunted and are treated as such at all times. Good, I agree. I want a copy of all your notes for how to counter and detect these things. If someone is turning Jane Civilian into Jane Serial Killer, then I want it stopped last week. Chief Bowman states before thinking. Do you have a method for tracking these devices back to the source? There is a specific tone and pitch of voice that has to be used for the veil to work. Also, a certain image. Unfortunately, normally having the image and voice of someone is a slam dunk for finding them. The image is one of a shadowy figure with nothing to give context as to how large or small they are. And the voice is easily mimicked, which not only obfuscates the master of the slave veil, it also makes it all the more dangerous, as an assassin that can only be controlled by one person is a problem, but an assassin that might take orders from a random girl wearing a black hood to hide her face can cause immense damage. Really? Put a dark hood on and cover your face. Force your voice up to a higher pitch, and you could control whoever has this veil on. Lovely, Teresa notes grimly. I want my own expert to take a sniff and then add whatever they find to your notes. The more that's understood about these things, the better. But I do not want it out of sight of at least 2 officers and 2 undaunted. Linda, you can be one, but your family doesn't count for the other. I need more. Do I count for the undaunted? Or do we keep tagging in the beginning of the end? The what? Alpha and Omega, sir. Mom, it's sort of the catchphrase around them. When they're on the field, it's the beginning of the end. Private Stream explains with a note of pure awe in his voice. But clearly Omega isn't impressed as he flicks the stream in question in the ear. All right, one last question, she says, and there's a nod from Chunk. What the hell was the knife and metal about? They get bored. They really get bored, and it's far better for them to be playful than vengeful. So if you can put up with random gifts of nonsense awards appearing on your person and hand-forged knives in places that they really shouldn't be able to get to, then they're fine. Bored? I am undaunted. I am better than the best of the best. These 2 are both better than me, and there is no shame in admitting it. Chink states, and the 2 otherwise silent soldiers start radiating smugness. Tone it down! His snapping only ratchets up the smug sensation flowing from the 2 men. And they're involved because they're what was in the fake box, Private Stream says. I beg your pardon? There was a homing beacon in the box I switched out with Specialist Barnabas. When it was opened, it set off the beacon, and the beginning of the end arrived at their base. They then beat everyone up, took everything that wasn't nailed down, pried up what was, set fire to what they couldn't, and left with all the prizes, Private Stream says, and Chief Bowman gives both Alpha and Omega a concerned look. I did say that there was far more dangerous than a bomb that could be sent, and there are undaunted better than me, Chink states. That you did.